what were you doing when the earthquake happened? I need to know.
Okay, can I be PG explicit?
Sure.
There was one of my roommates, I won't be specific.
How many roommates do you have?
I have two, but one of them I haven't seen in a year.
Okay, so not that one.
So I guess there's no way to. It's one of my roommates had a lady over.
Oh, okay.
And the structure of my house is not the soundest thing in the world.
That's not good for the start of an earthquake story.
No, it's not. So it's not a paragon of architecture. So anytime someone is doing the laundry or
doing the laundry, right.
Euphemistically speaking, everyone becomes immediately aware of it because the house starts shaking like a children's bounce house at a birthday party.
Okay.
And
that somebody's having sex in.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, it's like a bounce house. My house is basically a bounce house, is what I'm saying, okay. With harder floors. And so the house was rattling at some point, pre-earthquake.
Okay.
Or, mid-earthquake. So anyway, this earthquake happens, and my brain immediately starts reeling to figure out what's happening.
He's back at it.
Yeah, but
round two.
But it was so intense that I was like, do I need to go make sure that someone isn't murdering one of my roommates?
Oh, it felt like the ante had been upped.
Yeah, it was like it had never rocked so hard. Right. And I was concerned that my house would either fall down or I don't know. I thought there was like a fist fight. I thought Roadhouse 2 was being filmed on the porch.
Like someone broke into your house and it was like a Mexican soap opera. It's kind of what it sounds like. It's like the ante has been upped.
Yeah,
nice.
It was or like Nymphomaniac had like a third installment that was being filmed at the house. But so I thought it was very intense.
That's pretty weird. Yeah, and we had a 4.5 here in the Bay Area. Last night. Maybe mine was weirder in a way because it happened while I was playing Death Stranding. So anything you're doing when you're playing Death Stranding is weird.
Yeah, is that
or
part
weirder?
Is that part of the ARG? I can't believe Kojima coordinated that.
Yeah, and that's all I can talk about with Death Stranding. Welcome to the Noclip podcast. Hi, episode 11 here. Danny here. Danny O'Dwyer, nice to talk to you. How you doing? Joined by Jeremy Jane.
Hello.
Who is the other half of Noclip, who never really gets out in front of the camera or the microphone. Also, is this the first time we've ever done a podcast together?
Yes, this is the first time we've ever done a podcast together, and if I was in front of the camera more, there would be fewer things like actually committed to film.
Documentaries would just be a podcast, I guess. So long-suffering podcast. Actually, there's probably a couple of different people who are use cases happening right now. There's somebody who's only just started listening to this podcast, in which case, how you doing? It's always been like this. Don't worry about it. There's the people who are listening from the start when they were highly edited, and then there were people who are maybe patrons who have been tuned into what's been going on for the past couple of months. So just for everyone involved, I'm just going to lay it out there. This is kind of the new format for the podcast. I'm calling it almost weekly because we're going to try and do it weekly, but then there's going to be some weeks where they're patron-only podcasts, and then there's like once a month, basically. And then also we fly around the world and tell stories about video games, and that means we're often on the road. So we're going to try and bring the equipment and do it then if we can. But otherwise, we might have, I won't call them weeks off, but we won't be on the podcast. And the other thing is this version, which is me and Jeremy sitting down in Oakland. P.S. I moved coasts. I'm now living in California again.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, we'll get to that. This is also just an interim period because we are currently in the process of acquiring a studio for Noclip for the first time. We're going to have a space where we can film. We're going to be setting up a podcast studio, and then it won't just be me and Jeremy talking. It'll be people from the world of games and the world of games coverage and all that sort of stuff coming in to talk to us because that's what we do here, I guess, is that we interview people. And hey, you know what's faster than editing videos, Jeremy?
Hey, Danny, well, I got an idea. What if we did Noclip, but like there were no cameras? What if we called it No Cameras?
I mean, it would be truly no clip.
Yeah.
Although audio, I guess, can also be clipped.
Yeah. A clip is a broad term.
There are a lot of people who, but there's probably someone listening to this podcast right now who thinks it's called no clip because we don't do short videos. That's the one I've heard.
Really?
Yeah.
People don't know the term no clip?
They don't know that it's a cheat from first-person games to go through. I mean, it's a cheat from lots of games, I'm sure, but it turns off clipping, which means you can walk through walls, which was the idea of no clipping. We are going to walk through walls and show you what's on the other side of games development.
I guess I'm such a big nerd that never occurred to me that people might interpret that other ways.
It's probably the most famous of the id Software cheats, because they had like IDDQD and IDKFA and all these other ones you type in. But like, I feel like Noclip was the one. It was a word.
Yeah.
So, or God. I guess God mode is probably the most famous one.
Yeah,
actually,
for sure.
When I think about
but
it.
Noclip's it's in that top 3 for sure.
Yeah, but it's one of those people often don't know what that is. So.
That's interesting. I never would have guessed that they would think of clip as in like a media clip.
Yeah, man.
I don't know.
It's like mini clip.
Obvious.
Remember mini clip?
Of course.
Yeah.
All the Flash mini golf I played.
God. So I guess fill everyone in on what's going on. We're in the I won't say basement. This is ground zero where I was last night when the earthquake happened, and I felt all the walls shake. So I can attest to it can take a 4.5. I can say that for sure.
I don't want you to stress test it any higher.
No, that'll be. Let's wait another 30 years. Loma Prieta was 30 years ago this week.
Oh, really?
The big 89 earthquake that rocked the bay.
Jesus.
The first televised earthquake.
Don't tell my family on the East Coast.
Yeah.
They think every earthquake is like a catastrophic event.
Oh, so mine in Ireland as well. I think it's like some mystical event, like a dragon has come up from the ground or something.
It's like hail in Texas. Like, yeah, it's weird, but
can you die from hail?
I mean, how big's the hail?
How soft's your head?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Those are both relevant questions.
Right. But yeah, our earthquakes or not, myself and the family have relocated here. And I wish I could say more about the studio, because we're so close to actually signing the paperwork. But it's in the area. It's kind of like part of the video game development coverage world. It's like the people who own the building we're renting from will be like, so they're sort of like part of the scene, I guess, which is really cool, because it means that we'll have access to all of these extra stories and all this like cool stuff that's happening, not just for the podcast but also for recording stuff as well. And we're going to be bringing back my op-ed show and recording some cool supplementary stuff, the two of us, about games and also about film, and just like fun community stuff in a way that like our Patreon people have known for 3 years, all this behind the scenes stuff. But if you go to Noclip, like, I think I'm on screen for a cumulative like maybe an hour, and that's probably mostly the Half-Life doc.
Yeah.
Like, apart from that, where we don't really get out in front of the camera, which was the point.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be about developers.
Yeah. That's the funny thing about it, is I think that like initially Noclip, a lot of people were excited to see you do this project that was very you and spun off, and then you created a thing where you were like, how little can I put myself in these projects? I feel like that was one of my like creative missions or something, or challenges, which is that I'm going to make something that like on paper feels nightmarish, like influencer culture, but like I'm not actually going to be in any of these. It's the same reason in a weird way we did the Bethesda docs. Yeah.
Because I remember when we worked at GameSpot, like any article you wrote about Bethesda or Rockstar, you got a load of people hating on it immediately, regardless of what it was about. And I remember thinking, what's the hardest one to do? And I was like, Bethesda will be thankless. There will be a massive portion of people who really don't like it no matter what. And then I was really proud of the Bethesda one and of the Fallout 76 one. But the Fallout 76 one is definitely, when you view it now, it's through a different lens for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that was when we did the PAX table. A bunch of people were coming up and asking about that. And it's interesting just because they were like, did you guys know? And it's like, oh, I don't know. Like, that question couldn't have really been asked, because you don't really know, like on any doc, you don't know what it's going to turn out like,
right.
Especially if it's like a pre-release game. It's like, we were trying to do a cool project. It's like, we didn't get like a copy of the game and like sit down and play it for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was before they even showed it at E3.
Yeah.
It was that was the challenge, I think, of it, was trying to ask questions, being like, they have literally never answered these questions before. No one's ever asked them, because they were in the design, like, the people who were there came on at a stage or were in rooms where they're making decisions, but had never been asked why was the decision made or whatever. But anyway, that is all to say that we're also working on quite a lot of documentaries. I think this might be the heftiest backlog we've had.
It's getting up there.
So let's talk about this podcast. Is basically we're going to be talking for the next like couple of weeks about, we're kind of like setting the stage, letting you know what's going on behind the scenes at Noclip, what projects are coming down the pipeline, which is something we've never really done before, because we kind of said, well, they'll be finished when they're done, or we put a trailer out or something. But we're going to do all this, and then in November we're hopefully going to get the keys to this place on the 1st of November, and then we're going to start getting people on to talk about their stuff, and then also we'll talk about what's going on in Noclip too. But for sure, the next couple of episodes are going to be about what we're up to, which right now is editing, although we literally filmed today.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Let's go back, I guess, to the project that I had the least amount of influence over ultimately, which is when we went to Copenhagen and did the Hitman stuff, and then I flew home and then flew you back out to England to do a documentary with Chris Bratt about Creative Assembly.
Yeah.
How was that? How was your hotel? I booked the hotel and it looked very funny. It looked like something out of a British period drama.
Yeah.
So there was no hotels in the town that the studio was, so I just booked this weird place. How was it?
It was like Faulty Towers if I was the only guest.
You were the only guest? You were the only guest. Wait, was it a shithole or was
No, it was lovely. It was just in
you were the only guest in a nice hotel.
It was like a bed and breakfast in the English countryside, about an hour via train south of London, and I think there was like a couple other guests when I arrived there. It seemed pretty nice and normal.
They mysteriously disappeared.
Slowly, they just kept disappearing. I don't know what happened. Mrs. Johansson seemed so nice, but then as I stayed there, it seemed like there were fewer and fewer people.
Right.
And then I think it was like the Friday I was there. I got back from a shoot and they knocked on my door, and they were the gentleman. It was run by a family. It was a husband and wife and their son. And the guy knocked on my door and he's like, I just want to let you know, do you think you'll be dining with us tonight? Because they had a little restaurant in there.
Okay.
Right? And so it seemed like a bunch of people would come through from the local area, even if they weren't staying. And I was like, I'm not sure. And he's like, okay, so I'm not pressuring you. The only reason I ask is because you're the only guest tonight.
Wow.
And it was like a dark and stormy night. But it ended up being very, very sweet. I ordered some Indian food and ate with the guy who runs the hotel. Gave him a couple samosas.
Oh my God.
We had a beer and hung out. So it was bizarre. It was really nice. It was like this it was this weird contrast between, I'd go and meet up with Chris during the day and we'd talk about video games with these people all day.
In Horsham?
In Horsham,
right?
Which is it's an odd little town. It was beautiful. Like the architecture was beautiful and stuff. But like every cab driver I had would talk about how it was like a terrible place to be.
Oh, really?
It was strange because I think I got the sense that it was just kind of like stuffy and rich. A lot of the locals there, maybe.
Right.
But every time I'd be like, it's so lovely here, the cab drivers would be like, no, it's not. So, but my experience of Horsham was lovely, and everyone was very sweet to me. But it was bizarre. But yeah, the doc itself was really cool. Chris, if you're out there, you're a true gentleman.
Yeah, this is Chris. If you don't follow his work, People Make Games is his YouTube channel and his Patreon as well.
Yeah,
you can support his work. Him as partner do some awesome stuff. They just came off a crazy documentary about Athene. I'm not even going to get into it. Just maybe let that not be the first one of his work you've watched.
Yeah.
Because it's really long as well. But a lot of his stories are like really slice of life, like about, just weird. They're almost like what would you call it? Like urban legends kind of. They have that type of thing where he kind of like goes and figures it out.
Yeah.
But instead of it being, I thought he was going to launch this and it was going to be kind of like a lot of YouTube commentary stuff where somebody goes on Wikipedia or, looks up some things and then does a voiceover of it. But Chris calls people up and gets on trains and planes and drives places and he went to a different country to find that golden Wii. It's fucking each one of them feels like a weird little road trip.
Yeah, he is like this is a term that I think people throw around too much, but I think he's a journalist. He finds these stories and he's not just a dude making YouTube videos, because I think the idea of like a YouTube video is so broad that it could be someone just doing a video essay where they talk and they edit together a bunch of footage of other people's work. It could be a thing where they get a camera and go out and film B-roll, but then use a bunch of archival stuff. But Chris and his partner get boots on the ground and create all this really interesting video journalism. So
this also happened. So you don't know about this stuff. Is that this also happened with the Creative Assembly one? So So they're the lead, the founder of Creative Assembly, and the sort of lead architect of a lot of their early games, including Rome, and most of our stuff basically focuses on Rome. It's Tim Ansel, I want to say his name is.
Yeah.
so he lives now, I guess he spends his summers in like his villa in Italy.
Right.
So we couldn't get him. So the production was going to be split over 2 periods. One was going to be, you went over and filmed the bulk of the stuff at Creative Assembly, and thank you so much to everyone there for giving their time. There's a bunch of interviews there across like 2 different campuses. It was awesome. I've really enjoyed checking out what was filmed. But then we were going to wait for him to get back to the country. But then Chris ended up telling me that like him and his partner hadn't really like taken a holiday in a while. They hadn't gone on vacation. So they were like, if we just went to Italy, could we film it? So I was like, you could totally film it. But like, I don't have the budget to like go to Italy, to like fly you all to Italy. And so he was like, no, we'll go ourselves. But like, you know, pay for the work that's done. I was like, totally. It was like for the days. And then, they went over and spent like a day or two, both of them they're filming a bunch of B-roll and interviewing him at his like Italian Tuscan villa or something. I don't know where it was.
It's like a Hitman level.
Totally, yeah. So we have all that footage as well. I just got it a couple of days ago, so I haven't I haven't managed to break up that interview yet. But so it's turned into a whole thing. So if you're listening to this and you're part of our community or you're not, if there's anyone out there who wants to get paid to capture a bunch of Total War game footage,
please do.
Please help us out. I feel like I'm going to put the word out eventually, probably on Twitter as well. But if you're listening on this and you're interested, it'll be paid work, of course. If you can get us 1080-60 footage from a bunch of games, we'll or maybe we just, you know what's probably super illegal is if we pay a YouTuber for their archive, because they don't own the rights to that stuff either. Right. But I feel like if you're paying someone for the work, then it's okay, right?
Yeah. It seems morally okay to me.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, but
maybe we should just ask Creative Assembly if they've got footage at this stage. I don't know.
It really cuts out the middleman.
Yeah, it's weird. We kind of do exist in a very strange, opaque bubble of YouTubery at the moment.
Yeah, I was reading this morning about location releases for. I was just curious about like the process of going guerrilla style and some of these bigger films that go guerrilla style. Right. And I was reading about location releases because it's a thing that I kind of learned about in film school.
Were you watching Nirvana the band again?
No, but they're a terrible influence on me as much as I love them. But it's fascinating. Like, there are so many ways you can screw yourself just by like you, even if you have location release, even if you have permission, you still need like permits and stuff in many cities. And like, so you can't, in LA, you cannot film in your own house without a permit.
Really?
Totally illegal.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if that also crosses into YouTube stuff when it's monetized then.
I wonder
if, because fair use only covers, that's not that end of the legal spectrum. It doesn't stop you from. Is that amazing? Do you need to hire like a union guy?
Yeah, he just has to stand there in your living room and just watch you.
Just hold this Logitech camera, please.
Yeah. He just like hangs out there wearing like a white wife beater and just like watches. Takes a break every once in a while.
Yeah, it's been an hour. I'm gonna need 5 minutes. I'm sorry. We're pro union here. So that was one project. Here's one that you've. No, let's actually talk about the one that's closest to getting finished, which is the ESRB documentary. Which, if you didn't know about this, I feel like a lot of people are listening to this podcast who probably don't, because a lot of the stuff I've posted on Patreon or we've done other tweets and stuff. But if you're not hearing about this for the first time, this podcast is hopefully going to be kind of like where a lot of this stuff is coming from in future. But this one ended up coming together pretty fast at the end, but it was in plan for over a year. I actually got approached by one of the folks who was there. He was a relatively new hire, I think at the time, maybe he was there for a year or so, had watched Noclip stuff, and they were coming up on their 25th anniversary, and was kind of just floating the idea of like whether it might be something that we could do, and also whether or not it'd be something that the organization would be into. So it was good we had a year to plan it, because everyone kind of got to put their be honest about what they wanted out of it, I guess. And I could be very honest about the way in which we produce stuff, and that, you know, we have full control, and like this is the angle we want and all this sort of stuff. And I think we probably ended up being a good marriage in a weird way, because like I don't, you know, like one of the things in the storytelling aspect of what we do is I don't like going for the tabloid headline. And the thing with the ESRB that I always felt was that we know basically nothing about them because they've never had a camera inside the doors. They've, I think, never done an interview about their process at any stage.
Really?
I think they have spoken about the organization to the press, but they've never done like they've never done like an embedded thing or, you know, invited someone in to like say this is how we do it. It was always locked down. So there's basically no information about the ESRB anywhere except the one or two times it's come up in relation to things that are happening externally, be it a Jack Thompson being the way, or Yelan Lee, or hot coffee, I guess, being the big one.
That's the one I was gonna say.
Right. So if you did a documentary about the hot coffee thing, what would it be?
Yeah.
It would be they rated the game, and then years later when it was on PC, somebody hacked it and found this thing, which nobody thought was going to be in it. And then they didn't obviously know.
Yeah.
And then, whoops, we change our policy, or more so developers, I guess, do.
Yeah.
So you could, like, it seems too obvious, and it's also the least interesting thing.
Yeah,
it's like it doesn't go anywhere.
So that's the thing, is like sometimes things that are headline worthy or things that are like really easily sort of like bite-sized pieces of hot information are like they don't have depth to them,
right,
because they're best digested as a headline.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, what is the hot coffee doc? It's like you go to people and they're like, yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. The only part of that story that has depth is, was it ever, like, who made it at
Right.
Rockstar? Why did they?
Exactly.
Was it ever going to be in the game? When did it get cut?
But the
All that
ESRB
sort of
has
stuff.
like probably very little to say about
it. Yeah, it's like, well, it wasn't in the game and it shouldn't have been. And then when we realized that it was accessible in some way, it got, you know, taken off. I can't remember if they took it off store shelves themselves or whether or not it got taken off. I can't remember. But all I remember is the stock price was the problem for 2K or Take-Two at the time. So the story for me was like, oh, I want to fill in all the other gap of what the ESRB is, which is literally nobody knows what the fuck goes on inside. They know the responsibility they have. They put the stickers on the boxes and they got to rate them, but nobody knows how that works. And maybe it's because we're like video people.
Yeah.
But and we're video game archivists in a weird way, and we kind of, in a weird way, our role is similar to the ESRB's in that we sort of exist on the periphery of games development and are something that studios touch every now and again and then go away from. But they literally touch every single game ever.
Yeah.
Like, including crazy app store things now with that whole other iArc thing that they set up. So yeah, it was like we went in and interviewed 4 people out of the pretty small team.
Yeah. The very small, like for an organization whose iconography is so ubiquitous,
right,
like every time, you know, just like seeing the like E for Everyone logo on their wall like gave me a weird sort of like shiver.
I see your keys.
I know, yeah, like the keychain.
The keychain.
So there was like a part of me that expected to go in there, and then they have like the room with the precogs who are in there, and they feed the disc into the water, and then like a little ball comes out with a letter on it.
Totally, yeah.
But it's just like a handful of people who love games.
Right.
It's bizarre.
When we went in and we saw the amount of video game stuff that was around the office, and it wasn't like, it was less political looking than I was expecting or something. That was a shock. And then also in our interviews, we got our like Hugo Martin.
Yeah.
Like there's a character in this doc who is every PC gamer.
Yeah.
But he also is basically the guy in charge of like setting up the ratings on the day.
Yeah.
And like liaising with people.
Which is a huge relief when you get into a place that's rating all your video games and there's a dude in there who loves video games more than I ever could.
Right.
It made me feel very like, all right, cool. There's like something good is going on here. It's not like a bunch of bureaucrats who are trying to like keep video games from the children.
Right. Or like we're an arm of a lobbying group,
right,
or something.
Yeah.
So, and we got into a bunch of that stuff. We talked about the loot boxes because they've been people have been talking about the ESA litigating against loot boxes as a form of gambling, but like for everyone, not just for kids. And that was one of the things that came across, was I realized that, their responsibility is kind of to like to the industry, so that the industry isn't regulated by the government. That's kind of one end. To the government, so that the government is happy with the results they're getting, which they have to do lots of reports on. And that was interesting hearing about like self-regulation, but the checks and balances required that they have to produce to show that it's working or whatever. And then also parents. It wasn't gamers, it was parents of people who were playing games. And that was interesting, that like, oh, this isn't really about like the rights of consumers. It's not that type of organization. It really is about like making sure that parents are armed with information and tools so that they can stop their kids playing stuff that they don't think that they should be playing as well. So it was I don't know, the whole thing was so interesting, and it was edited. It was like editing I don't know, a hot knife through butter or something. The story was there. It was like it was a fact finding. I feel like the ESRB's Wikipedia page is going to quadruple in size once we release this thing.
That's kind of the ideal outcome of what we do, though, right? Like filling out a lot, like not only humanizing people in the games industry and who work on games, but also just sort of like filling out the gaps in information about who these people are and what they do and how these things get done. And like you said, like the ESRB is just kind of this like walled garden of mystery,
right?
And it's not because they're like protecting some sort of archaic ancient, there's no Lovecraftian god who like decides the ratings. It's just like it hasn't been done. So it's really cool, just like that was exciting to have that unique opportunity, just like knowing that it was a bunch of things that seem commonplace to them,
right?
That we just get to like signal boost, and people are like, oh, that's fascinating.
You could feel the sense of fear there, right?
Yeah, totally. Especially when we first got there, it was just like I feel like they were trying to make sure that we were good people, justifiably so. Like, yeah, I don't know.
You could easily. I mean, every story we do, you could turn into anything. You could turn into a hit piece. You could turn into like there's so many different. Editing is just you're picking what version of the lie you want to tell. Like it's never wholly the truth. It's a truth, and you can get as close to that truth as you want. But like you pick what truth it is, right? And you can. There's like a load of different ways you can take these. And I did, but in this one more than any of them, I felt like, oh, they are like we interviewed Pat first, and I thought that was interesting that Pat Vance, who runs it all, was the first person we talked to, and it was kind of like. She definitely, kind of like all our interviews in a way, is that once people are sitting there for a while, they get it, it's conversational and they loosen up a bit. But I got a sense in that one at the start that it was like, oh yeah, they're definitely like, they want to open the window curtain like a little bit, because they know that by never doing it, they have no control over what people think they are, and like there's a lot of misconceptions, I think, is kind of ultimately what it was. But also they don't have any control over this at all, ultimately.
And it's scary that it's like a first time thing, because there's nothing to like, they can't be like, oh well, like, yeah, they said that, but that other article will tell you the truth,
right?
That's kind of like the only thing out there. It's like if you're agoraphobic, you haven't left your house in 25 years, it's like go into the liquor store for 10 seconds is intimidating.
Totally. Yeah, well, it was fun. Did you enjoy that one?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I also just like visiting New York. I never get to know. New York City is a fun place to be. We
had a fun meetup as well.
Yeah, the meetup was great. Surprising turnout. I mean, it's New York City, but it was kind of a last minute kind of thing. Saw our friend Goob Shoe Riot.
Yes.
The throwback to the GameSpot days. He's been with us for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. I kind of said this already, but just the ESRB is such a... it's such a background sort of like texture element of the games industry I don't think about. But yeah, I don't know. It was cool. It kind of felt like we were like plugging into this center node of the whole grid that like everyone has to go through. You know what I mean?
It's a bit like Neo in the architect's room, wasn't it? It was like
less screens, or maybe as many screens.
Right. Yeah. Less old white guys with beards. I'll say that.
That's true.
So that one's it's really pretty much edited, like timeline story wise. Interviews are all done. We need to film our stand-ups, so that's kind of the next thing, is getting out of this room full of boxes. All these boxes, I'm surrounded by Home Depot boxes. These are all going to the studio. These are all studio stuff.
One more thing about the ESRB doc was that a bunch of the people there require anonymity.
Yes.
And so
the raters.
Yeah, the raters. So I couldn't remember the term, because raters sounds like a thing I would have made up.
Raters of the Lost Ark.
Damn it. I beat me to it. So I it's funny because everyone will see in the B-roll when the doc comes out that there's like a shot of the office and you can see like just the tip of someone's head, or like just the back, like the nape of their neck. And so it was very difficult to like frame my beer. It was like this weird like identity puzzle. It's the Ingmar Bergman of B-roll.
so we've never talked about this like in response to one actual project, but if you want, I can tell you what got cut from the clearance.
Yeah.
Okay, so with every project we do, the interviews we do are, you know, ours to keep, and that's, you know, we get to edit those as we want and yada yada yada. But one of the things we do as a sort of an insurance policy for the people we cover, and mostly it's actually just so we can film on the day and then worry about it later, is we give all the B-roll that is like film that we'll use, we give them a master cut of all of it, and if there's anything in there that they want trimmed because they're not supposed to have this piece of equipment, or this person doesn't want to be in the dock or whatever, we have no quibble. I mean, there have been quibbles on some stuff, but like basically we're like, yeah, you can just, if there's something you don't want to be in there, just let us know and we'll cut it. Or we'll say we could do this. Like we've blurred screens before on, what was the one we had to blur loads of screens? I forget, like Hades, I think we had to blur a bunch.
Yeah, I think there was a bunch of engine stuff that wasn't supposed to be on screen.
There was some like proprietary stuff that maybe they didn't own or something that was on screen. And you can do some of this stuff on YouTube now as well, actually, which we did pull the trigger on once. So there were 3 shots that were trimmed or cut from your B-roll.
Okay.
Do you want to know what they are?
Yeah, of course.
2 of them are the backs of someone's head.
Oh, really?
Most of the backs of the heads were fine, but there was 1 or 2 that they were like, you can kind of tell if you or
like if you knew them, or if you stood up to the office, you could like hold up a printout of like, oh, I know that guy's head.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were like, do you mind? Or I was like, no, we had plenty of shots of that type of stuff, and I was like, yeah, that's fine, we'll cut.
I mean, it's ultimately it's that guy's fault for having a tattoo on his head that says my name is John. So
social security number, man.
Yeah, it's like it was a bit much.
Agent 47. Yeah, his date of birth.
Yeah, you could just scan him at the grocery store and steal his identity.
And the other one I think is interesting, and I feel like I could talk about it. We cut it because we thought it might be misinterpreted, but there was a poster up on someone's desk, just in the cubicle. There was was it a poster? It might have been actually a document, but it was the ESRB's emergency response plan, it said. Which was an they're based in downtown Manhattan. So it was an emergency response plan that like any well-meaning corporation would have to there being an emergency.
Right.
And I mean, there has been emergencies in downtown Manhattan while the ESRB has been there. So that was kind of that was there on the desk. But I think this was actually a very this is a good example of something getting pulled because of something that's not really apparent. The worry was that people might think it's like a PR response plan.
Oh.
Right? Which companies have. That like, oh, if something, you know, if we get caught up in some sort of controversy,
everybody meet in the stairwell,
or this is what, you know, this is the plan in terms of like communication, which it wasn't. It was literally like an emergency response plan that like we hadn't in CBS for GameSpot or anything. You know what I mean? So the worry was there was a little bit of back and forth that was like, do we think that people might think this is some corporate doublespeak kind of thing? And I thought about it, and I thought there is no way for me to protect against that. We can't do anything in the edit unless we specifically call out this one thing, which most of the audience will know what it is.
Right.
But, so to call it out would be absurd. So in the end, I was like, yeah, let's just cut it.
Yeah,
like,
it's the amount of squeezing to get that little bit of juice would have been absurd.
It would have been ridiculous.
That's crazy.
And all you'd need is one Reddit post where someone took a picture and said, oh my God, did you see this?
Right.
They have an emergent, you know, and then it gets misinterpreted, which probably would not happen, but you never know.
Yeah, that little bit of risk isn't worth it.
Yeah.
That's
so that
interesting. I mean, that's like, that's
the
kind of thing I didn't even notice that was on the desk, is how minor that is.
It's on a busy desk. There's a lot of stuff there.
That's wild.
I thought actually it was a very clever pickup.
Yeah.
I thought about it and I went, yeah, okay.
They're on point. They're looking for those potential avenues of trouble.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah, not a funny one. Huh. So I thought that was quite interesting. And in the end, I was kind of like, yeah, we don't need that shot. It was of a desk that you had another angle of.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's not.
Crazy.
Just in case.
Or like alternatively, you do like you rotoscope a blur over it, and then people are
weird.
like, "What is that?"
Totally. If they see something on a screen that's blurred, people assume it's not meant to be something. But if like this looks like it's a document.
Yeah.
It's like it, you know. So it ends up becoming like a a morsel that you're kind of like, what was that about?
I still like the idea that they have like a PR nightmare and they're like, everybody to the stairs, don't take the elevator, like everyone get out back now.
Like you hit this, you open up this document, it gives you your new identity.
Yeah.
Or something, you know?
It's witness protection. It's like a passport with John Smith written on it.
Right,
Not the John Smith who had the tattoo on the head.
No,
different
one. Yeah. A lot of John Smiths.
Yeah.
I mean, if your name's John Smith, you're probably going to get a tattoo to
Whose fault
differentiate
really is
yourself
Yeah.
from all the other John Smiths. Yeah, it's been a fun couple of months filming stuff. I also did a little sojourn to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, how was that?
It was cool. We filmed at Ablegamers, myself and Esteban did last year at their headquarters in Harper's Ferry. And then this was a follow-up on that where I went to a hospital. I filmed this solo. I interviewed this interview with Stephen Spawn, who is the sort of... I guess in many ways he's the figurehead of Ablegamers, but obviously he does a lot of work for the organization and has done for years. And then I sort of, I guess, went with Steve and the team to the hospital where they were putting on what's called an expansion pack, which is basically where they set up a bunch of accessibility. Sorry, rewind a little bit. Ablegamers is a charity that basically facilitates the ability of people to play video games who have either some sort of motor problem or they have issues with their digits or like any type of accessibility issue, be it not being able to move sort of the way most of us can, or deficiencies in vision or any of those types, or hearing or any of those types of things. So it's a super broad sort of remit, which involves doing things like getting controllers to people's houses who like have specific issues, or outreach so people know they exist. So that was a big issue. So apparently after the Super Bowl commercial where Microsoft unveiled their the Xbox accessible controller, which they also consulted on.
Wow.
Yeah, they got a bunch of way more calls that next day than ever before, because actually just a lot of people think, oh, I can't move my hand, or I'm paralyzed from the neck down, I won't be able to play games. But actually people have been using, they have a controller that it's like you blow into little holes, and that's like, so you can play games using just your mouth.
Wow.
So there's like it's an unbelievable, it's super, it feels like our beautiful cyborg future when you're like in amongst it, because it's all of these people talking about their bodies and thinking about their bodies in ways that we just kind of don't unless you're forced to, like usability wise. And what the expansions packs are is they're kind of a mixture of those two missions where one, it's about getting people access, but it's actually like they're going into a hospital that has a ward that is rehabilitation for physically or stuff like that. Maybe they might have done pediatric ones as well for kids who have issues like that. But it's also outreach. And also the room that they set up stays in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of like it's almost like a launch party for this special room, and it's also like getting people in and like saying, okay, we can do this and do this. And it was crazy because it was like the amount of the breadth of stuff they had and the breadth of people that came in was really interesting. So you had like a gentleman who came in who never really played games much, but like his grandson loves games, and he came in and was in a wheelchair, and I think maybe he had some movement on one of his arms. I think he was on I forget what you called him, like a motorized wheelchair. I think he might have been using one of his hands to like operate it, to drive it. I should say operate, because also that doesn't just mean driving, it means like tilting and doing all that sort of stuff as well. And he went to play this game, which was a game that uses like an eye tracker to like, where you're like a spaceship and you just look at the asteroids and they blow up. Like, or you look at the asteroids and the laser gets shot at them.
Yeah.
And it, like, I played it, like loads of people play that one. And that was super cool. And then you had like a girl come down who has, I guess, she was in a wheelchair, but she has like a muscular issue where she has like, I guess, weak muscles. So like she can't do a lot of like strenuous things with her hands. And the controller they gave her was basically like a fighting game pad, instead of using like an Xbox pad or whatever, where your hand has to be like has to be held in like a very specific way for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
So it's funny, it's like all these issues that like, oh, I never thought about, like, it's not about it's not about one. There's no one size fits all thing to this. Like one of the ones that stood out to me last year, where I read about was doing the rounds, was a bunch of games decided to, I think it might have been Uncharted 4, so maybe it was 2 years ago, where instead of tapping the X button to do something, just having it so you could hold it down.
Oh yeah.
Which, yeah, you don't think about it, but it's like, oh, if you have like an issue where you're not able to like have that muscle strength.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4 is gonna kick your ass.
So like, and it's so annoying because you could get to that point in the game and literally you'd have to stop. And it's such a tiny thing. So it was cool. It was really eye-opening. It was fascinating. I really enjoyed it. What I think I liked about it the most is that, and I think I'm going to pull this into the doc as much as possible, was that I actually, like, when you go into a lot of these things, you start like feeling like it's a charity case, right? Like you feel sympathy for people, but like sympathy is kind of condescending.
Yeah.
I didn't really feel sympathy so much as I was like just really impressed by everything.
Yeah.
Like all the people who were there really knew about this whole, like they were critically thinking about this aspect of, I don't know, physicality or something, or UX or HCI or whatever, in a way that I'd never really thought of before. And then also all the people who were coming in who had a specific issue really knew about their specific issue.
Wow.
Obviously, because they were like, they've lived with it.
Yeah, but so did a lot of them know that these controllers, you said it was sort of like an outreach program, where what was it, mostly people coming in who had never seen this kind of thing, or people who were like kind of had heard of it and wanted to try it, or what was the general sort of like?
I'd say it was mostly people who had never heard about it or had heard from a friend one time or something. But there was lots of different instances. Like for instance, the woman who came in the wheelchair who had the muscular weakness. She had, I believe, had that since birth. So she had played games in the past and tried to play games, but would have to be pick and choosy about what she played or stuff like that. And then there was like the older gentleman who had the grandchild who played games, who probably never played games in his life.
Yeah. And
probably maybe wouldn't after this, but it was like a fun thing to do and like was an interesting thing to do that day in a hospital, which sometimes that's all you need, right?
Yeah.
And then there was a gentleman, a young guy, who had been in a car crash recently and was very immobile at that stage. And I'm not sure at what level in his rehab he was, so I wasn't sure if this was the way he was going to be from now on, or whether or not in a month's time he'd be different with rehab. I couldn't really tell, but he was I guess able-bodied, will we say, I don't know, a person who played games up until like a month ago or something, right? So it was, I was talking to Steve about it. He said like there's so many different factors to every person that it's always a new thing. And it was very interesting to be there and like kind of fly on the wall film a bunch of basically the interviews they give them when they talk to them, and they ask them all those like pertinent questions. Sorry, I also had a cold all last week, and I didn't do a podcast last week because I didn't want to make you sick, and I'm not sick anymore, but I'm just not used to speaking as much. My throat's gone. So it was a lot of it was just super interesting, like, which I guess a lot of our interviews are, but this was interesting in a wholly different way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, it's there's a level to which it's interesting because it deals with this sort of very like visceral problem of human beings like bettering their life. Like, I mean, my life gets better when I play many of the games that we make docs about, but there's a huge difference between like, I don't know, having access to games, like even as a person who can use normal game controllers or just like your ordinary Xbox controller, there are days when if I'm like feeling down or having an off day or feeling sick or like my mental health isn't at 100%, like video games can be this escape that really just like, even just to not think about your stuff for an hour can really help you like reconsider it and pull back, and then be like, things can feel more tolerable. And these are problems I'm talking about where I'm like, oh God, like I have to work tomorrow. Like I have to go, like these little things. So I think that's really important work to give access to this escape. I keep wanting to say escapism, but that's not the right word. Like this ability to engage with these meaningful experiences, giving like creating a conduit through which people who arguably need that more than anyone else can have access to that. Yeah. That's really cool. That's
Yeah.
it. I'm looking for it's also a unique opportunity where I like wasn't there, boots on the ground to film with you. So like I get to.
It's been a weird time between the creative assembly stuff where I wasn't there, and then this where you weren't because you weren't there for either part of this, because Esteban also filmed the original stuff in Harper's Ferry. So the issue is actually we have one more interview we need to do if we're going to tell the Ablegamers story, and that's interviewing Mark, who basically founded the thing. So yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out when we can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what the series is going to be either. Whether or not it's going to be one video, it's probably going to be multiple one. I think there's a profile of Steve in there, because I talked to Steve about a bunch of stuff that is kind of like not really tied into Ablegamers, more so about him.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Awesome.
Yeah. I wonder if they can hear my screaming child in the background of this podcast.
It's background noise. Just we'll Adobe it out.
Get some room tone of a screaming child.
He's just gonna get some a nice bed of screaming.
Right. Oh my god. I think that's pretty much all we still have a bunch of GDC stuff to edit.
Yeah.
We're gonna get through
always
that.
seems to be the case.
Every time we do it.
Every GDC, we create a backlog for ourselves to last until the next GDC.
Yeah.
And beyond.
Right. Well, especially because it's been 2 years gap every time, so it's taken 2 years to get through them all.
Yeah.
The idea with the studio is that we won't have to do that GDC thing anymore, is that we can film that type of smaller, punchier content, I guess, just in the studio. But we got some really good stuff out of that, like the Into the Breach FTL stuff with Subset was great. The Tarn Adams one, we'll get to that eventually.
The Long Dark one was really good.
Right, yeah, with Raphael. That was a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah.
And what else came out? Bloodlines we did. And there was another one around that. What was the other one? We did another one that was around the Long Dark. It's like the last one. You think I'd remember what was on our YouTube channel?
I know.
I'm going to go to our YouTube channel. youtube.com/Noclip video. If you've never seen one of our documentaries, but Celeste.
Oh yeah.
Of course, Celeste
speaking of, I had a friend who is sort of like my hardcore video game buddy. He's a friend of mine who lives out in Boston. Brian, if you hear this,
Hardcore Brian, what's up, man?
Hardcore Brian, that's what we call him.
Yeah.
And so I was telling him about all these like roguelikes and all these very difficult games I've been playing.
Right.
I like mainlined a bunch of roguelikes and just kind of went back and finished a bunch of games. Finished Rogue Legacy and never finished
Salt and
that.
Sanctuary.
Salt and Sanctuary, huge fan of Salt and Sanctuary.
Right.
Beat that game in like 2 days.
Whoa.
I think I spent like 30 hours on it over 2 days or
You've
something.
done this a couple of times with some games.
I don't play games for a while, and then I
Yeah.
do nothing but play games for a short period.
Right.
But I sort of braggadociously texted my buddy and was like, just like, all these hard games like ain't shit. And then he was like, really? Because like I know for a fact you haven't beat all of the Celeste B and C sides.
Oh yeah.
And so
get those strawberries, baby.
yeah, so challenge accepted. So I'm almost done with the B sides.
Oh wow.
I don't know if
They just added did you see the whole thing they added?
Yes,
They
I
just
did.
patched it like 2 weeks ago.
It's hard, man.
I think it was
It's a
the day
hard
the video
game.
went up, actually. It was a month ago. I think by complete happenstance, we put
really?
it up at the I did not know. It
Yeah.
went up the same day as like a bunch of Celeste updates.
Well, thanks a lot, Noel. I've been bashing my head on the wall trying to beat every molecule of Celeste.
Oh God.
But it's
good.
amazing.
It's a good video game.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got more of those. But yeah, it's going to be... We've got those. Oh yeah, I guess we should talk about what we filmed today. We filmed an interview with Alex Austin from Cryptic Sea, who are the developers of a bunch of interesting games. He's really into the world of physics. He's working on Sub Rosa, and they released Golf for work groups, which I think is just called Golf now. Is that right? I think that's the same game. Maybe it was a different game. Wait, was Golf for work groups? Was that a different game? That might have been a different game. That was a different game. Okay. Golf. I played Golf, which is his one. Yeah, this is also... Look at that. How did two people make the... No, is that the same one? Yeah, it is. Same one. Yeah.
Okay,
it is.
cool.
Yeah, I guess it's just called Golf. Some people... Golf with a question mark. It's a very strange game.
I've not played it.
It's fantastic. We got... We're doing a project with him and Edmund McMillan about Gish, which I think is the funniest thing to do.
Yeah.
A project with Edmund McMillan and not have it be about all the projects everyone's been asking, like Super Meat Boy and
Binding of Isaac.
but to do the game that was his first ever game and one of Alex's first games, and a game that I fucking love.
It's a really good game.
I love Gish.
I hadn't thought about it in a very long time.
100%.
And then when you said we were doing this, I got very excited all of a sudden.
Yeah, so it's a weird project because it came about where Edmund reached out and was like, we're thinking about doing a thing on this game, and maybe I'm not sure if I can actually talk about what they're doing or whatever, but like he was like, could we like hire you to film something? And I was like, you can't hire us to film anything, but we'd probably just do it.
You
like
could invite us.
It sounds fun. Yeah. This idea you have. So we're doing a retrospective on Gish. As part of that whole thing. Yes, we got Alex today. I guess he was driving down from Mendocino County, and we back down to Santa Cruz where he's based and where Edmund's based, and we're going to drive down to Santa Cruz one of these days. Just day trip it down there. How long is the drive? 90 minutes?
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half. Yeah.
Hit the boardwalk.
Yeah. Go. I'm trying to think of a traditionally Santa Cruz thing to do. Go not surf. Go watch other people surf.
Go into a weird underground elevator land and see a bunch of duplicates.
I was gonna say. So I lived in Santa Cruz for a bit, and watching Us was very funny. Not only for like location spotting, but also just being like, I've been to the place where the door is to the underground Us world. Like, how did I not stumble upon that?
Have you watched Sorry to Bother You?
Yes.
So that's the same for Oakland, basically.
So sorry about the
Boots Riley.
The sign spinning scene where his girlfriend is spinning the sign is like 5 blocks down from my house.
Oh, yeah. Is it on Ashby or
no? It's on
San Pablo.
It's on San Pablo by the Quarter Pound Burger place.
Oh, really?
If I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I watched them. I watched it when it came out, but I may be mistaken. But I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the ending. Let's not talk about how weird that movie gets at the end. But like a lot of that stuff happens just down the other side of the lake.
Yeah,
Then it was. We watched it in Maryland. Myself and my wife. It was like one of the last movies we watched before our kid was born, and we were like, man, I fucking miss Oakland.
Yeah. Oakland has had a good couple years for movies. There's been like a resurgence of Oakland.
Yeah, I mean, Fruitvale Station made Creed, made Black Panther, right? Like, there's a bunch of actors and directors who've been. I mean, maybe that's literally one actor and one director, but like, there's a bunch of.
Mahershala Ali as well is an Oakland-based actor,
really,
or originally from Oakland.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And he has done an incredible amount of stuff.
Right. Mahershala Ali and Tom Hanks Tom Hanks is from Oakland.
Really?
Yep.
I would never have expected that.
Yep.
I expected him to be from like a corn farm in Arkansas just because he's so wholesome.
Totally. No, he's from up around here somewhere. He went to like school in Montclair or something.
Interesting. Tom Hanks, open invite for the podcast.
Yeah, come on over, man. Talk about okay, right. And this podcast is just going to be a bunch of tangents forever, but Tom Hanks, if you know like E3 presentations, all that sort of like those types of like press conference presentations, Tom Hanks did the best video game press conference of all time.
Oh, I've seen it.
The 2009 Sony CES presentation. I swear to God, once this podcast is over, go Google it. He should be like a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
It is. He's basically, as part of, I think, Angels and Demons, which is the sequel to the...
It's the Dan Brown book.
Da Vinci Code, right? As part of that, produced by Sony Pictures, he's basically contractually obliged to do this gig where he talks about Sony products, including PlayStation, televisions, all this sort of stuff. All for prompter, but he goes off prompter frequently and like lets it be known. He does like a fake enthusiasm bit, which is genuinely hilarious.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's also like you can tell he's just so offended by the ad copy that he can't stick to it. Like,
he's like, who wrote this?
He rejects the premise in the middle of the presentation in a way that I think only Tom Hanks could do it and still be lovable.
Yeah,
he just sandbags the whole thing, and it's so funny.
He's like, Sony's everywhere in my room. It's my television. It's my PlayStation. It's my thing. Sony on set. It's a Sony camera, and he stops and goes, I don't think I've ever seen a Sony camera. It's so good. It's and then like the CEO of Sony comes out and is like forced to be with Tom as he's ribbing him.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. Yeah, so shout out to Tom. You can come on our podcast anytime you want, my friend. Yeah, America's sweetheart. Yeah, so I guess we've got to film that. We've got a project in LA next month, which I don't know if we'll talk about it yet, but we always finish the year with a game that was one of my favorites, I guess. We've done this a couple of times, and this is one of my favorite games of this year, a little indie thing, which has been super fun. So we'll get to that. And then we're going to go kind of a bit crazy with the other channel. There was a couple of different ways I was thinking about doing this. I love Corridor Digital, and you've been weirdly separately from me. You've also been getting into their crew channel.
Yeah.
They do a bunch of like interesting VFX stuff. They're based out in LA. They have a studio down there. But then they have this separate channel called Corridor Crew, which is basically the behind the scenes stuff of what happens at their studio. But it's all about like film process and like the work they do, and they make really fun videos from that. And we basically kind of want to do like, we have so many ideas for stuff like that we kind of want to do that type of thing, and also bring back my old op-ed show. And we're coming up with like some interesting ways of I guess filming all that. You've had some ideas about getting some new kit, right?
Yeah. Should I talk openly? Okay, cool. I basically, the idea is that they're like, we want to raise the bar on the cinematic quality of what is on YouTube, and like there's a lot of people out there doing really clever, beautiful like lighting and camera work and all these things.
Yeah, in op-eds, I feel like the game has changed in the past like 3 or 4 years.
Yes, yeah, totally.
What do you call them? Video essays.
Yeah. But it's interesting how like the term production value gets thrown a lot in YouTube comments as like, if someone gets like a colored gel or like there's like a shallow depth of field, or like people be like, wow, the production value on this. And it's like,
it's in focus, and there's a depth of, look at the boku. It's
the audio isn't peaking. But I think we want to sort of like take that and just drive it as far in the direction of like production value in the mind of someone who like I went to film school, like, and I have worked with a lot of heavier kit, and there is a scale where like we're not going to get a crew of 20 people to come in and do like a crazy elaborate dolly shot, but there are ways in which we can acquire new gear to do like a Dana dolly and things like that to sort of create a more cinematic look to the stuff we do, and do more blocking, more like,
I'm interested in that.
Yeah, like just creating sort of like bridging that gap between what makes a narrative film feel more like cinematic, more like old Hollywood, and sort of trying to bring some of that into our videos without doing like ultimately we don't want to shoehorn it in for no reason. Like there's no point to make something look beautiful for just the sake of making it look beautiful.
But also like I feel like nobody would watch our documentaries if you hadn't made them look beautiful.
Well, thank you.
It would just be me asking questions.
Well,
like editing helps, but like you know, it's all each the meal is only good as the ingredients.
Well, thank you. I mean, right back at you. It doesn't matter like how good something looks if it's not cut together nicely. Yeah, but it's one of those things where like adding actual production value, like like upping the ante on what we're capable of, and increasing our gear that we bring with us, and all these things can like basically just like create a more cinematic version of what we're already doing, and continue to push the 8 ball, because you and I are both lovers of cinema, and like. Yeah, I don't know. There's...
And like creatively, I feel like, because I didn't go to film school.
Yeah.
So I'm like always pushing up against the limits of what I can understand. And so I want to learn more and keep getting better at this sort of stuff. And I also feel like having this other channel, which right now, I guess the way we're going to roll it out is just do it on my YouTube channel, /Danny O'Dwyer, which has had many forms over the years. And basically kind of use it as like a creative little fucking test bed, I guess.
Yeah.
And then pull these ideas into the doc. It makes it so that we don't have to like, the docs don't have to like be, not like, we don't have to be overly risky for the sake of being risky or weird on them. We can like do really weird stuff that really explore, you know, creatively interesting things we want, and then pull the learnings from that into the main docs.
Yeah. Be like an incubator for techniques that we can perfect and then bring to the docs in interesting ways, and continue to like up the ante.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to all that stuff. And having a space we can film that's our own.
Yeah.
Because we're getting this office space, but we're basically, it's like open plan, and we're painting the walls white, and we're going to set up a bunch of little kind of different sets on it.
Yeah, we've been running around guerrilla stealing shots for a long time. It's just like locking the door and like just setting up a shot, and knowing that it's like our space is going to be a gratuitous grace.
Oh my God. Like we can, everything about it. Just not having to like cobble together a podcast studio in this room last minute to do this. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on at the moment. There's more projects, there's more videos. And then this podcast, we're going to do a bunch of fun stuff. We've loads of really interesting guests lined up for the first few weeks and months. We've got people from town, people from out of town. We've one international person who's coming in, who works at a studio, who I've wanted to talk to forever, who's swinging by and is going to pop in. And I think we now have the clout within the industry, or people know us enough now that we can get people in. And I've also like put out feelers to all of the publisher friends and PR friends we have. Because like all these studios that go on these press tours, like now we're there. But also I don't want to just make press videos. it's a way of like having the cake and eating it, being like, oh, come into the studio and do a podcast with us.
Yeah.
Like we'll just talk like authentically about everything, and the way we do on the dock, you have to sell us your thing, but like it'll be while they're in town in San Francisco going to IGN and GameSpot and doing all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so
You mean they don't have to come to the woods of Maryland
They don't.
to do a podcast with you?
I never went to Firaxis. That's my one thing. Sid Meier was literally 30 miles from my house. I could have gone. I never got to sit down with Jake Solomon and talk about XCOM. We're going to go back. I know it's going to happen. They're going to announce something eventually, and we're going to go back, and it's going to be weird. Because I'm like, wow, this would have been cheaper if I just did it like we did Bethesda. At least we did Bethesda.
Yeah, at least we got that one off the list.
Yeah, that was fun. That's it.
Awesome.
I guess we're filming Thursday and Friday this week in Supergiant as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be filming as a team at Supergiant, which is a first. That's exciting.
Yeah, it won't just be you in there asking the questions. I wonder if there'll be enough oxygen in the room for a...
We might have to bring a tank.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
These are the oft-requested Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre docs, and then we'll have episode 4 of Developing Hell in December, which is being filmed too. Yeah, so that's that. What are you going to play for the rest of your week? You got any games you're playing? Are you still writing your screenplays? You going to chill out, or?
I've been writing a lot. I played a bunch of... I wrote a list of the games I played recently so I can list them off. I played Moonlighter, which I really enjoyed. Not the top of my list, but I had a lot of fun with it. Rogue Legacy, an old one, went back.
Nice.
Very funny because Amir from Supergiant was in the special thanks in the credits.
Oh,
so
right.
I got a good laugh, which is funny because I went back and played it because I'm doing this Hades doc, and I was like, I haven't played many of the roguelikes that sort of paved the way.
Do you know why he was special thanks?
He helped the two main guys who developed it.
Okay.
He kind of explained it. We'll have to get him on the podcast.
Brothers as well, or
yes,
something?
Yeah, he helped out the two brothers who made Rogue Legacy.
Right.
Yeah, he had some funny anecdotes.
Yeah, we'll have to get those folks on a podcast.
I'll reserve for him to
totally.
tell
We should get
himself.
Darren in because he lives on the East Bay as well, right?
Yeah, just get him to talk about like his VSTs and all his
Right.
plugins and stuff. I finally beat Enter the Gungeon, which is a great
cool.
top-down shooter roguelike. Really enjoyed that a lot. Salt and Sanctuary I mentioned, and the Celeste B-sides have been kicking my ass.
God, there's so many good games at the moment. I feel like I'm like so far behind because we were moving and we were filming for 2 weeks and then moving, and then the power was out because of fires might happen.
Yeah.
Like it's just been weird. And then we didn't have the internet, and or the stuff was in a truck. It was just crazy. So I played a bit of Control, but not really that much, and it hasn't really hooked me yet. So I need to dive back into that. I'll be completely honest. The only thing I'm going to be playing for the next couple of days at least is Death Stranding.
If I feel any more earthquakes, I will know who to blame.
It's part of Hideo Kojima's press media. It was in the media. The review guide I was sent is watch out for shudders while your Norman Reedus baby jar is jangling. God. Let's stop this podcast. Thank you all so much for hanging out. If you have any questions, send it to podcast@noclip.video. We'll start answering questions and stuff. And until I guess next week, we'll do it again. We'll follow back up, let you know how everything's going with the studio. Until then, have a good one.
Farewell.